we got to stop looking at this as red and blue issues. These are American issues. Reality is, if you give a damn about this country or the people in it, how hard is it to put a piece of cloth on your face? I'm going to be talking about some serious stuff today, but it's 2021, and we're still dealing with coronavirus. It's a year later. I don't understand why this is an issue. I'm just going to roll right into it. Some people complaining about vaccine passports. People are saying this is a violation of freedom, a violation of rights. But let's think about something. Let's think about it logically. Like, I'm not going to insult anybody's intelligence or say that your political beliefs are bad. We have two different views at a minimum for the sake of having more than one view, and that's a good thing. But we've gotten to the point where both sides, neither one, are working together. And I don't think the problem is that people don't want them to work together. It's that these people are stoking fears and violence, and they're preying on people's insecurities, on people's fears, on people's, their emotions. They're preying on emotions. People aren't making informed decisions based on facts or logic. They're making decisions based on heightened emotions because that's what the media is doing. The media is telling you things are this way, and then they're turning around and telling you don't trust the media, but they're the media. I just want to invite everybody to take just stop looking at how things are said, or rather what's said by individuals in these positions of authority or influence. Look at what they do. Don't listen to what they say, because they'll tell you one thing and they'll do another. Don't listen to what they say. Look at what they do. I'll give you a really good example, and this is both sides. You have issues with you've got the situation in Florida going down where I heard somebody say, leave DeSantis alone because, he's trying really hard. Well, when the issue with the nursing homes happened in New York with Cuomo, that was bad. Like, nobody can admit that wasn't bad. Like, I think that's the problem here, is that we have to admit when somebody's handling something like wrong, or we have to hold these people accountable. It seems to be people who are idolizing these people's leadership. That's not democracy. We don't idolize them. They are supposed to serve the people. They are public servants, and they are being treated as the ruling class. That is not how it's supposed to function. And they're telling you that these other people are the tyrannical government, and it's them. So look at who's telling you what to do, as opposed to who's telling you to think about your actions or what you say. So I'm going into that. We'll talk about how the manipulation. I'm going to give a very clear example. You have Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, who just so happens to be that his wife owns stock in the company that produces remdesivir. Okay, people own stock all the time. Except for the fact that he didn't report it to Congress like he should have. And it's already sketchy. Now we're getting into, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. The other thing is he's going out on TV and saying, don't wear a mask. They can't arrest us all. Fight for your liberty. Shouldn't he be encouraging people to do what's right? Like, you have the choice, right? If you have a choice to do something, why is he telling you that the only viable option is to resist? He's works for the government. Like, why is he going against these guys? Follow the money. It's because his wife owns stock. So he does not want you to get a vaccination because it's in his financial interest for you to get sick, not to die, but to get sick. Because if you get sick, you need treatment, and the remdesivir is a treatment. So he makes money, his stock goes up. Now, that was really dumb on his part, especially a libertarian. But then you got Ron DeSantis, who was admittedly a little bit smarter in his execution. Instead of actually owning stock, he decides, I'm going to take bribes. His number one donor was just revealed to be the creators of Regeneron, who he's been touting, by the way. So, again, in his best interest to make sure that you get sick, because it's in his financial benefit. Because these are the people that are paying the bills. Don't get it twisted. Yeah, of course, these politicians are terrible people, but the people who are worse are the people who are paying their bills. But they're bad because they know what they're doing is wrong and they do it anyway. They're vaccinated. Fox News headquarters building has a mandate for vaccinations, and all these Tucker Carlson and all these people on television are telling you that I don't know, I won't get the vaccine. I don't know what's in it, but they're vaccinated. It doesn't matter whether or not you get the vaccine or you don't. Like, we're getting into weird territory because it's already a year later and we haven't fixed this problem, and it's for the same exact reason, because they're politicizing an issue that should just be a public health issue, an issue of public health. It's not complicated. These people are playing with lives. They're not advising or informing people. It's not information. They're not providing information to the public. They're simply saying, they're throwing out conjecture and just saying, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. They're just stoking fear and emotions to get ratings. That's all they care about. Bottom line is money. They want money. So the more stuff that they say that's crazy, the more you watch. The more people that they get sick, then the more stock goes up for the individuals that have invested that way. You got to look at the money. Follow the money. See where they go. Most of these people are corrupt. Both sides. Nobody, you can't just defend your side. When it's wrong, it's wrong. Cuomo had to resign. Messed up. End of story. No argument there. You messed up. We got to stop looking at this as red and blue issues. These are American issues. Reality is, if you give a damn about this country or the people in it, how hard is it to put a piece of cloth on your face? You got choices. Nobody's trying to take your choices away. What we're saying is those choices are limited. When you get into a car, you can't go as fast as you want. There are rules. You can drive fast, but there are rules, and those rules change on what state you're in, or what city you're in, what road specifically you're on. We have rules. We all agree to them. If you don't agree to them, you can leave, or you can vote, or in effect try to change the law. You have the ability to do that. That's democracy. You don't simply just say, I obstruct. Now, there are occasions where the law is unjust and you have to make dramatic gestures in order to get the attention, to get it to change. But even then, there's a line. The line should be non-violent. There should never be a point where you're getting to that unless it's the absolute extreme and it's already coming on you. That's defense. That's different. But you shouldn't just be going out there and causing violence for the sake of violence. Now, people go into these groups and they manipulate them. They'll know that this is a legitimate, gathering of people with an issue, and somebody will, bust a chair on a window or something, so that way it seems like, oh, they're rioting. It happens all the time. You got to be mindful of the situation. Now, all that being said, this concept of vaccination passports, that's literally always been a thing. The terminology sounds really messed up because these people keep comparing things to Nazi Germany. Listen, this is not Nazi Germany. All right, nothing of this sort is even close to that. There are times where things can go in that direction and we can have conversations about that, but this particular issue is not even close. In fact, they're trying to prevent the loss of life. Let me first explain how government works. Government needs people because people pay taxes, i.e. the bills. A government cannot exist without people. Now, whether or not they want to keep you sick and needy on the government, absolutely. I believe that they think they want to keep you as dependent on the government as possible. It's in their own self-interest. But these particular politicians, it's irrelevant to them what happens to you as long as the money comes in. And you're not paying the bills. Corporate suit over here that owns Regeneron, that guy's paying the bills. Your measly $1 or $2, $3 donation doesn't go as far as that guy's $100 million that he just says, hey, make sure that my stock goes up. Or make sure that this law passes that way. Or you can't enforce this and you can't enforce that. Follow the money. It's not complicated. So when going back to vaccination passports, vaccination records have always been the standard in public schools. We've always adhered to that. We cured polio because of vaccinations. When people were getting the flu shot every year, were people getting outraged before when getting the flu shot? Oh, I don't know what's in it. Well, here's a quick solution. 1, you don't know what's in it. That's on you. But 2, if you want to know, there's a thing called the internet. You can Google this. All of the information's online, readily available. For COVID-19 vaccines, the same thing. The patents are online. You can find them and find out exactly what's in it. The same people that will say that will argue about, I don't know what's in it. Do you know what's in your vape? Do you know what's in a McDonald's burger? Do you know all those details? You should know what you're eating. But they're taking the lazy way out and just saying, I don't know what's in it. You never knew what was in the other stuff. What's the problem now? Think for a second. I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence. I'm saying they are trying to insult your intelligence. They're telling you that they can lie to your face and you're gonna believe it. And you're proving them right. They just say things and it's completely conflicting and yet you eat it up. Most of these people just post things without even any research. They won't even open the links. It's probably not even a real article. They just post it and they argue about it online. But what are you actually doing in your community? Are you actually involved with any local government? Are you actually involved with actually affecting these laws or these things? Only when it comes down to somebody telling you obstruct and go and say, no, I won't. Let's look at this, all right? Vaccinations have always been the standard at public schools. Here's the thing. You have a choice. That's freedom. Freedom is choice. Freedom is not you can do whatever the hell you want. Freedom isn't free. Understand that. There's a cost. And the cost is a consequence of some sort. Some are good, some are bad. For example, for freedom, we have rules. We have freedom, but there are rules. That is a consequence. Some people might see it as a negative. For the most part, people see it as a positive because it keeps the general population safe. That's why we have traffic laws. I would argue that we have traffic laws mostly so we can generate revenue for police, but that's a different conversation. But the reality, at least the basis is that traffic laws are designed to protect people from hurting other people by going too fast, by drinking and driving. There are things that happen. You can't just go and, slam 20 beers and get behind the wheel of your car. But is somebody infringing on your freedom because you can't do that? No. Imagine it like this. When we're talking about this virus, you're talking about aerosol, stuff coming out of your mouth, right? Go light up a cigarette and go, blow it in somebody's face. I have the right to smoke if I want to. But do I have the right to blow it in your face? Well, there's nothing that says I don't, but technically it's infringing on your right. Right? So why would you go and blow smoke in somebody's face? You just don't. Just move back. I'm not telling you that you have to be vaccinated. I'm telling you there are options and you choose one of them. But you got to choose. If you don't want to wear a mask, get vaccinated. If you don't feel that it's safe and you don't want to get vaccinated, then wear a mask. If neither one of those, stay the hell home. Don't go out. That's a consequence. It's just what it is. Don't go out there. The same rights that you have to go out and live your life and do whatever you want, business owners have the right to protect themselves and to protect their customers. Because if somebody gets an outbreak in their business, they're responsible and they can get sued. But do you really care about that? You might talk about free enterprise and free market, but do you really care about that? Have you thought about any of those ramifications? Those are big deals. There's two sides to every coin. There's a lot of people that are being, worried about being evicted. At the same time, there's a lot of landlords who, they're not getting any coverage. They're not getting any protections. The PPP loans are gone. So what do? Well, if your only source of income was that property, then you might want to rethink your strategy because that sounds like that person didn't want to go to work. You're not working. You own something that maybe you inherited, and then somebody else pays you for it to live there. So a lot of the problem here is that there are a lot of people who don't actually want to do anything that complain about other people and say they're not doing anything. Stop for a second and ask yourself, what are you doing? There's so much that you can do. You can volunteer in your community. You can work some of these essential jobs. Like, we have what we call essential workers, but we don't give them essential benefits or essential protections. And we pay them like crap. Why? Why is that okay? Why do these people have to go out there? Like, I heard the argument so many times about like the minimum wage. First off, it's not free money, okay? Somebody paid for that. You've been paying for it in taxes, right? So you pay into that so that should something bad happen like this, it can go back to you. The thing that you've paid into already benefits you. And if the problem is that we aren't paying people enough in these industries, that's something to look at. You've got people in restaurants, they don't get minimum wage. We have a minimum wage, but yet it doesn't apply to that specific industry. It makes no sense. So those people get paid like crap, and they get paid tips. In Europe, you just get paid a wage. If you tip somebody, like I lived in Germany for 3 years when I was stationed there in the army. If you tip somebody, they kind of look at you funny, like, I don't need that. They're paid well. So why do we sit here and treat it like we don't need to rethink our industries? That's innovation. That's what this whole country has been good at, innovating and getting better at things. We stopped doing that. We started outsourcing everything to everybody else and then just expecting everything to get better. Mass produce everything cheap and just go out there instead of building quality products. That's why both of these systems work. The free market all by itself doesn't function well, because without regulation, these people, these companies, they're just going to do everything they can the fastest way, the cheapest way, and that's it. A great example would be how, do you ever hear about the ozone layer anymore? That was a huge thing when I was a kid. Oh, the ozone layer. Aerosol cans are screwing that up. Guess what? That got fixed. We actually fixed the ozone layer. You know how that happened? A Republican president, Ronald Reagan, instituted actual regulations, which he was against, and Republicans are typically against, on these industries that controlled aerosol, and they ended up they innovated and came up with a new way to release, to create their products, and that way was not only better for the environment, it was cheaper. The regulation forced the innovation. That's why these things work together. The idea is that if you let the free market run, people get greedy. They always do. With government, if you let government get to control, that you get a tyrannical government. You can't lean either way too much. It's balance. It's always balance. You eat too much, you're full. You don't eat enough, you're hungry. You eat just enough. It's that porridge, man. Think about it. Balance. We have to balance each other out. You have one party that openly came out and said our entire goal is to make sure this presidency doesn't succeed. Are you serious? And these are the people that you... I like what Dave Chappelle said when Trump was elected. He said, I got to give the man a shot. He said, I got to give him a shot, because I hope he does the same for me. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, but I hope he does the same thing for us. Give us a shot. We have to work together even when we don't like it. Sometimes those are the best outcomes. That ozone layer conversation is a big indicator of that. So think about this. Vaccines. When did they become a problem? When they told you it was a problem? When suddenly they were telling you to be worried about it? First, the virus was a hoax. It wasn't real. Then it wasn't that bad. Then the president who said all those things, he gets it and tells people, get vaccinated. He says, immediately takes credit for the vaccines. And yet some people are still against it. They're playing on all your fears. There's no specific narrative. They're just going to tell you whatever they want to tell you at the time, whether you buy it. They feel it out and say, oh, these people like vaccines? Oh, yeah, then maybe you should do it. Oh, these people don't? No, don't do it. They tell you whatever you want to hear. They're grimy as hell. It's just, and it's blatant. It's right in your face. Like, it's so obvious. And maybe you don't want to believe it because maybe you feel embarrassed. Own up to it. because now that's a Nazi comparison that I will make. In Nazi Germany, too many people looked the other way to the Holocaust and didn't want to see that it was happening. Now, that's not to say that this is compared to the Holocaust. It's not. It's not even remotely comparable. The point is, 50% of the population is vaccinated. The other 50 isn't. The 50% of the population that's vaccinated, for the most part, are safe. So those people aren't worried about getting sick, no matter what these people are saying. We're trying to help them. They're not worried about getting sick. They already got vaccinated. If we all got vaccinated, there wouldn't be mutations. We wouldn't still be having this conversation. If you want the pandemic to end, you got to do something. You can't just bitch about it or just post about it, memes. You have to do something. Surprise, surprise, freedom isn't free. You have to do something. There's something that you are required to do as a citizen. Now, with that conversation, I want to talk about patriotism. I hear people say it all the time. Oh, I'm a patriot, America, or I was in the Army in 16 years, and people tell me, thank you for your service. And for a long time, I didn't know how to respond to that. And over time, I started saying, thank you for the support. But at what point is that just something people say? Because there's always some person eventually that goes, well, I almost joined. And I bite my tongue, but the reality is, but you didn't. So what do you do? Do you contribute to your community? Do you volunteer at your kid's school? What do you do? Something small is important. One of those things, no one's knocking any of those things. But there are so many people that do nothing. And they want all this, freedom. What freedom? Do you want the ability to own people? It sounds like that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you want the ability to do whatever you want, including maybe own people. Think about this. It's insane. So people say, patriotism, right? I'm a patriot. Well, there's a difference between patriotism and nationalism. Look them up. Look up those words. Because those people that are saying these things sound more like nationalists and not patriots. Because patriotism also depends on your perspective. Revolutionary War. For us, Americans, patriots. To the British, we were rebels and traitors. Not revolutionaries. That's we use that word, but to them we were rebels and traitors. Civil War. Confederates, rebels and traitors. And it is what it is. If you were not on the side of the United States of America, then you're not a patriot to that country. Now, at the same time, the people who, the redcoats in the Revolutionary War, the people who were on the British side, were they traitors because they fought against the U.S. against the revolution? No, because from their perspective, they were patriots. They were being patriotic to Great Britain, which they saw as their mother country. So perspective is important, and we have to recognize these things. We can't just think, we can say whatever the hell we want. Perspective is important. So, again, we're talking about patriotism with somebody saying, thank you for your service. It's a real way you can thank a veteran for their service? Wear a mask. Wear a damn mask. Or, get vaccinated. Or stay home. Pick one of these things that helps another American. Because service members will sacrifice their freedom to protect yours, and you won't even put on a damn mask to protect the guy next door. And mind you, if he's vaccinated, you're not protecting him. He's worried about you. And you can say, oh, well, don't worry about me. You're right. Well, what about the kids who aren't vaccinated? You're not even worried about your own damn kids. Depending on how your perspective looks, some parents will say, well, you can't tell me how to raise my kids. Well, if you're being abusive, that falls into a different area. Child abuse is a crime. So knowingly putting your kids in danger, isn't that criminal? You're knowingly putting them in an environment that could cause them to die. Because it's not just like some people say, oh, it's people that aren't healthy. We don't know. This thing's mutating. We don't know. And that's what people are saying. It's not that they don't know. That's the problem. People are dying. Kids are dying. I have relatives that work in the hospitals. Kids are dying. It's not a joke. It's not fake. It's not the news. Go talk to somebody that works in a hospital. Is it that much of a conspiracy? Is every hospital in on this? That literally every hospital, medical expert, like places all over the world they're all working together to convince you that this is really a thing. So even if it isn't the virus, what are people dying from then? Just natural causes? 500,000 people dead. It was going to happen anyway. ICU beds completely empty in the state of Alabama. Not one single ICU bed available. But that's not out of the ordinary. Just life. Just the flu. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You have to look at the bigger picture. People are willing to sacrifice their lives. 9 of my friends gave their lives for this country. And whenever somebody says that they aren't willing to put the smallest inconvenience of putting a piece of cloth over their face, or staying 6 feet from someone else, or getting a little prick of a needle in their arm, you're not willing to do that? You know how many times I hear people say, I'd do anything for my kids. Well, why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing that? True story. When I was probably, my mom said I was probably 13 or 14. That seems about right. I was probably 13 or 14 years old. And my parents rented a car. And when we were returning the car, I don't remember if we were picking it up or returning it, but I opened the glove compartment for I don't know what reason. And when I stuck my hand in, there was a needle sticking out of my hand, a full syringe sticking out of my finger. I freaked out. Always hearing stuff on the news about people leaving dirty needles and HIV, all kinds of things. And I'm like, what the hell is this? It felt like that was intentional. It's really weird. It was a drug. It could have been a drug. I don't know what it was. But when I got pricked without hesitation, my father saw it in my hand, sticking out of my finger. He grabbed it and stuck his finger. That was incredibly brave. I was my eyes got watery, and when I saw him, it was what did you just do? It was incredibly brave. Stupid, very stupid, but incredibly brave. He didn't need to do that. He did that solely so that I could feel comfort. He looked me right in the eyes and he said, whatever happens to you happens to me now. Because he was worried that was going to be something wrong, and we had to go get tested. I had to do blood test follow-ups every month for 6 months to make sure that it wasn't anything. Thankfully, it wasn't anything. I don't know what the hell was in there. Maybe it was a diabetes needle. Who knows? But that was a brave thing that he did. That was a sacrifice that he was willing to make for me. And he didn't even hesitate. It's one of the most amazing moments ever. I was shocked. I realized in that moment what a father would be willing to do for a son. So what are you willing to do for your family? Because if you're not willing to get vaccinated or just wear a piece of cloth on your face, are you really brave or are you a coward? Because you talk about somebody taking your rights. What rights? You think people want you to walk around with masks? What, so they can laugh at you? Look, we got this guy's wearing a mask. It's not about control. It's about preventing this from spreading to the point that we lose too many people, that it overruns the healthcare system, that it overruns so many different industries that will be losing, workers, teachers. There's so many people at risk. And again, the government needs people to pay taxes. So they don't want you to die. So again, this is for when it comes to school, the vaccines are for the safety of children and the staff. Seeing as the COVID-19 vaccine hasn't been approved for kids under 12, why is this even a question, most kids actually don't seem to mind protecting others anyway. It's certain parents who have turned this into a political issue instead of a public health one, as I stated before. I served 16 years in the Army, and I guess some people would say I sacrificed my freedom for the greater good. That doesn't make me special, not in any way. Many other people have done that before me and will do it after me, and did it at the same time all throughout U.S. history. But I didn't see any uproar when we were all sitting in that room getting stuck needle after needle after needle before basic training. Dozens of needles. Nobody complained. I was doing it for the service of my country. I didn't want to get those needles. I don't want to get all these vaccines. You think I want to sit here for 2 hours in a room while somebody just sticks me with something they don't even tell me what it is? Absolutely not. But you do it. It's called sacrifice. So if you're really a patriot, make a sacrifice. Do something you don't want to do for someone else's benefit. How hard is that? When it's just one of those 3 options, you have a choice. You have one of the choices. You don't like those choices? Stay the hell home. When it's over, come out and play. It's weird, man. Smallpox, anthrax, they give us all kinds of crap, man. I don't know. So if there is hesitation about this specific vaccine, ask yourself, why is it this one? Why now? Is it because politicians and media personalities who aren't health experts and happen to actually be vaccinated and have vaccine and mask mandates at their place of business, who also have financial interest in companies that manufacture COVID treatment drugs? Why would you listen to these people? Why? Just ask yourself why, and then follow the money. You follow the money, you'll always find the answer. Bottom line is, most of this stuff's greed anyway. Anyway, I don't even know why we're still having this conversation. I'm asking for you to think about it critically. Do some research. Don't just look at something online and repost it. Freedom is not doing whatever the hell you want at someone else's expense. It's not how that works. The options are clear. Mask up, get stuck, or stay the hell home. That's all I gotta say, man. On the subject of patriotism and being a good citizen, if you really want to thank a veteran, like I said, don't just say it. Honor their significant sacrifices with the insignificant discomfort of one of the options I mentioned, wearing a mask, getting stuck in the arm, or staying at home. If we all did our part, this would have been over a long time ago. I mean, I really have to emphasize, any parent, like I said, if you say you do anything for your children, prove it. If you say you're a patriot, prove it. If you're a religious person, what does Jesus say to do, about treating others with kindness, right? What does he say about giving to the poor? Live up to these things. Don't just use them for your advantage. I think that's what was meant when it said in the Ten Commandments not to use, thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain. I don't think it meant actually using his name. I think it meant using his name for your benefit. Using his name in vain in a way for you to benefit, that it somehow fits your personal goal as opposed to glorifying God's name. Think about that. Think about how you actually are as a person. And maybe that's why you're behaving the way you are. But think about that. It's never too late to change. I mean, Jesus Christ hung out with sinners. So it's not too late for you to just start doing the right thing. I know some people say, it's not too late. Start doing it now and we can turn this around. It's not complicated. It really isn't. Everybody else is going to remember all this. But more importantly, your kids will remember it. Because your opinions may not necessarily be the same as theirs. So remember that in the future, your kids will remember whether or not you would make a sacrifice for them. And when it comes time for either you to go in an old folks home or for your kids to say, I'm going to take care of you, remember that. It might come back to haunt you and bite you in the ass. But again, you got a choice. Unlike, Afghanistan citizens, you have a choice. They don't. You have a choice. So make a good informed one. God bless. Right now, what I really want to talk about is why freedom isn't free. There's a cost. There's a song about that. It's hilarious. But to America. But why do so many people in this country think freedom means that we can just do whatever we want at the expense of other people? Your rights aren't supposed to infringe on the rights of other people. What are the inalienable rights? Life, first and foremost, the right to live, liberty, and the pursuit, not actual, happiness. The pursuit of happiness. However, that's not how the original Constitution was written or designed, was it? Liberty and justice for all didn't actually apply to all, because some people were defined as only 3/4 of a person. That mentality still seems to persist in America today, just in a different shape. Too many people think that the police are their personal security, Karens. And other people get off on the idea of making people serve them food for shit wages, while they call workers essential, while refusing to provide essential protections and benefits to those same essential people. The problem today is the same entitlement that existed in 1776. It persists today in just a different form. Freedom for some, above all. And if you use the Bible to make an argument, understand that we have, according to the Constitution that people love to quote so much, and quote incorrectly, by the way, we have freedom of religion. There is no national religion recognized in the United States. We are freedom of religion. That is the type of society we have. So you can practice anything you want here. So, people who argue like, oh, the Islamic State, they're an Islamic State. Most of the people that get upset about that same concept, that it's specifically an Islamic State, will be the first people to call this country a Christian nation. It's not. Understand that you're upset at these people for being religious fundamentalists, and you're also a religious fundamentalist, and you think it's a different God. It's the same God. The God that's in the Quran is the Abrahamic God. Same thing. Most people think that his name is Allah. Mind you, most of those people don't even know God's name. You say that and those people say Jesus or Lord. Do you even know why in the Bible the word Lord is capitalized in certain points? Because the Tetragrammaton, look it up, which is the Hebrew written name for God, which most people say is unpronounceable in present language, which translates to basically YHWH, or Yahweh, which anglicized is what Jehovah's Witnesses call Jehovah. Did you also know that Jesus is an anglicized version of his name? Because it's actually closer to Joshua. His name in Aramaic is Yeshua. So understand that your perception on these things is skewed. So when you understand that, you take into consideration that you are being played by people who use your lack of knowledge against you. If you actually want to be able to talk to these things, if you want to stop being manipulated, people talk about tyranny and talk about being liberated, but you're not doing anything about it. You're actually going right along with the tyranny and the injustice because you don't realize that you're being used to perpetrate it. If you really want to free your mind, go do the research, learn for yourself. Then you can pick whatever views you want. And if you choose those views because you actually choose them and you say, I don't really believe in democracy. I believe if it's not my way, it doesn't work, then fine. I'd rather know that. But don't pretend that you're a fan of democracy if you don't only like things when they go your way. And then people try to use the Bible to cover that up, using the Lord's name in vain. Now, the reason that it was changed in the Bible is because some people thought that actually using his name was blasphemous. Thus, Lord capitalized Lord. The reality is there's power in God's name if you believe in that. I personally believe there's power in it. And I'll have another conversation about some religious stuff because I have interesting views. People like to define things. I tell you, definitions are important, right? So I'll just go off on a tangent here. I'm not going to stick to it too long, but understand something. What if God's an alien? Oh, people are like, oh, he's Martian. Think about this. Hold on. What does alien even mean? It means not from Earth, right? So if God created the Earth, by definition, he is what? So I'm not saying God's some little green man somewhere or that he's a Martian. What I'm saying is by certain definitions, beings that are not from this planet are extraterrestrial. Doesn't mean they can't also be supernatural. I don't know. Quantum physics seems like it's supernatural. There are things we can't explain. Science doesn't explain everything. Science is seeking to explain things. That's where people get things confused. Some people say, like, oh, I'm not saying I'm an atheist. I'm saying I'm an agnostic. I haven't met God, so I don't know. There are some people who are so fundamentalist in their ideas that God can come down right now and perform miracles, and they wouldn't believe it because it's not their version. Because when they find out that God is a Middle Eastern Jewish man who probably didn't have a beard because that was added by Greek society later, and definitely didn't have pale white skin and long flowing blondish, hair. He was a Middle Eastern Jewish man, olive skinned, probably dark haired, dark eyed. Understand that if he came down today, you probably wouldn't accept him as your savior. The same way the Pharisees didn't. History repeats itself. I didn't really used to believe in that we were in the end times. I was like, every generation says that. Bro, there's some wild stuff going on in the world, man. My beliefs are being challenged. You got wildfires that are taking up an entire continent last year, Australia. You've got flooding happening all throughout Europe. Just all kinds of natural disasters coupled with the fact that this pandemic is raising. Look around you. So many people are blind and following false prophets all the time. Somebody who will tell you to your face that they're a Christian and do the most anti-Christian thing right in front of you. So are you holding these people accountable? Are you holding yourself accountable? You don't have to infringe on anybody else. Do the right thing on your part. If we all did the right thing individually, we would get there. But we get into these packs. Oh, I don't want to lose my social group. I don't want to offend my neighbor, my friend. I don't want to lose that connection. So I just agree with these things even if I really don't. What makes you any different from a terrorist who does the same thing? Who's worried about his somebody coming up to his house and saying, if you don't go plant this bomb in the road, then I'm going to kill your whole family. Because that's how it happens. I spent a year in Iraq. And 9 times out of 10 before we'd, go and hit the road to go pick up supplies, we'd have a guy knock in the middle of the night, knock on the door, come and tell us, hey, let me see a map. And tell you exactly where he put the bombs. Because he didn't want to kill anybody. But he had to put them there. Because otherwise his family's going to die. And please don't tell anybody I told you this shit. Or I'm dead. My family's dead. Those people have to live with that reality. I saw that every day. And you know what? Iraq's not like they show you on TV. You know what it looked like? It looked like Arizona. It looked like a regular place. There were people with Nikes. The only difference was some people were walking around with AK-47s. And some people were wearing the robes and the burqas. But for the most part, people were wearing Nikes. What do you think happens when you go to the Super Bowl and they have all those T-shirts ready to go, right? Regardless of which team wins. Super Bowl, World Series, any championship game. They always have T-shirts ready to go for whichever team wins. So what do you think happens to the other shirts? They just burn them all? No. They end up going to other countries and they sell them over there. So you see guys wearing T-shirts for teams that didn't win the series and they have them and you're like, wow, that's interesting. Get out of your space. Get out of these stereotypes and this crap. Wake up. Stop watching TV. I cut TV like 2014, man. Stop watching TV. Watch YouTube. Look for stuff. Don't go down these YouTube rabbit holes, but learn something. Watch informed news. Watch news that comes from a source that isn't paid by a sponsor. Where these people aren't telling millions of dollars and telling you how to live your life. And meanwhile, they're perfectly fine. Ain't nothing happening to them. They're fine. But what about you? You're struggling with all this crap, and who's looking out for you? Not the politicians who just got your vote and then didn't care about you. That's exactly what happens. But they'll still send you emails. Can I get $1? Can I get this? Can I get that? They'll set up that recurring payment real fast, huh? But once they already got elected, do they really give a crap about your issues anymore? Only when it's beneficial to you. But there are some people who are in it. Those people often get ignored. Because why is the media going to focus on those people? They're going to focus on the people who are terrible. It's fun. That's what sells. It's nuts, man. It's I can't. In the Bible, it said, be kind to your neighbor and to give to the poor and the needy, to give away your possessions. That if you had extra crop, you gave it. So how is that not, like, how is that concept ignored in the United States? Oh, free market, like I can't give anything free, dog. You can't give handouts. Since when is giving people in need a handout, especially when those people pay for these protections? We're all in this society together. Like, again, some people feel so entitled that they feel like you're not losing any rights or benefits, but someone else gaining rights or benefits offends you. Think about that. Why do you care? I'm Latin, I'm Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican. If somebody came up to me today, like I was having this conversation before, Speedy Gonzalez, a friend of mine said like that was offensive, like or the Taco Bell dog. You didn't find that offensive? Newsflash: no brown people, no Latin people, like that I know, no Puerto Ricans, no Mexicans that I know, gave a crap. Okay, it's a dog. It's funny, huh? Okay, whatever. Is it somewhat stereotypical? I mean, sure. I want to talk about something more important than that. Let's talk about how Hollywood tries to be inclusive, right? But you talk about, name all these Marvel movies, right? They made sure that they got, a movie that was directed at the black audience. They made sure that they got a movie directed with a female lead. They made sure that they were inclusive in certain areas. Guess what? Where's the Latin hero? Oh, he gets a cartoon. Believe me, seeing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was amazing. Seeing Miles Morales, half black, half Puerto Rican Spider-Man was amazing. Seeing a Puerto Rican flag in the cinema on that, like, it was amazing for me. But again, think about this. It's the animated movie, not the live action. Look at all the Disney princesses. You've got a Disney princess representing nearly every culture. And then they finally say, oh, we're making a Latin princess. She goes to TV. She didn't get a movie. To the TV show. Always second tier. Not black enough, but not white enough. Think about that. All right? Comic relief. Michael Pena is a great actor. Have you ever seen freaking Crash? That guy has done some amazing movies, man. And yet, later in his career, he's been relegated, and maybe he's doing it for fun, these comedic roles. And he seems to be enjoying it. But when it comes to the Marvel Universe, and believe me, that character's funny, Luis in Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, that character's hilarious. But the most significant Latin character in all of these films is just the comedy relief. Now, some people will argue and say, well, what about Zoe Saldana? That's arguable. I mean, she's a huge character. The only difference is she's not specifically identified as Latina. She's an alien. She's playing someone with green skin. And I kudos to James Gunn for putting all different types of people there. He didn't just, make the dark-skinned people the aliens. But the point of that, and it's not to knock Zoe Saldana for playing well, that's great. That's fantastic. I'm very proud that she got to do that. And then, you also have Benicio del Toro, who plays an alien, arguably a very powerful alien in a celestial. That's me being a geek. The point is, where is any Latin representation in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? None. And I'm not saying that it should take precedence. We're just getting, the first Asian film with Shang-Chi coming out. I'm happy for that. I'm just saying, when will that become a focus? I did see The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and they introduced the second Falcon. And that all became kind of it was, obviously he's a Latin character, which is great. But you're seeing the trend here with sidekick being minority and how that can be problematic. Sidekick is the minority, then that person gets promoted to the next position. It's not a problem right now with Sam, because that's absolutely, in line with the arc. But it could be a problem when it starts to become that. Where, we hand it off to the Latin guy, and then we hand it off to the Asian guy, and then that's going to become problematic. So I think that Michael Pena was underutilized. I think that we're not looking at this the right way, and I think that the Latin community doesn't come together in the right way on this subject. I honestly feel that way. There was some controversy over In the Heights, and they said that the cast wasn't, I guess, representative of the Afro-Latino community. And Lin-Manuel Miranda apologized for this. I honestly think I don't think he should have had to apologize. I understand why he did it. And of course, he's a nice guy, and he did the thing respectfully, but I don't think he should have had to do that. You're putting way too much weight on one person's shoulders when this person just created the first film with a majority Latin cast that I've ever seen that didn't have a gangster stereotype, a drug addict stereotype, a prostitute, some underaged pregnant female, or druggie. These people were all entrepreneurs, just people all within a community that looks exactly like how my neighborhood growing up actually did look. I grew up in the South Bronx, and besides, my neighborhood being also really black, that's how Hispanic neighborhoods were. So I don't understand why people say that, and they say, it wasn't representative of the Afro-Latino group. They were like, there were the dancers in the background. No. Look at the cast. What you're saying is that person, that these at least just looking at the main characters, the four main characters, and then also Graffiti Pete. So you talk about Usnavi, Vanessa, Benny, Nina, and let's go with Graffiti Pete. Even though people don't consider him a major character, he arguably frames the entire film, and I'll make a separate video on why that is. But look at these characters. Are you saying that they're white? Because to white people, they're not. And you're saying they're not black enough. But you could have two dark parents and then be born a light-skinned Hispanic just because it's in the DNA. That just mixes. It just happens. My dad's dark, my mom's light. I came out light. My sister came out olive. Darker than my mom, but arguably I'm the lightest person in my family. Some people think that that's like a positive thing. Why? My skin color's never worked in my benefit. People have always known I'm Latin or something else. They'll say, in New York, people understood that I'm Latin. They understood that. Outside of there, people think I'm Middle Eastern or Italian, but it never gave me any benefits. So understand that what you're saying by saying that wasn't representative enough in the way that certain people want to classify that is that they weren't Afro-Latino enough. You're basically saying that you're relegating their experience to what you think it should be. This guy wrote this experience based on how he perceived it. And mind you, he put, you get all this representation in the movie. They mention, they have the Mexican flags in there. My wife's Mexican, and she's Mexican, Cuban, and Colombian. And when she saw the Mexican flag in that neighborhood, she was like, wow, that's dope. The inclusion there. And then he made another movie, like an animated film that's set partially in Havana, Cuba. Like, come on. This dude is really doing a lot for making general audiences understand Latin culture, or at least aspects of it. And he didn't deserve all that. I really think that was unfair. And again, I think it's also not only is it unfair, it's also not helping with those people's experience. You're downplaying their experience, and you're basically saying that they're not, enough. They're not dark enough for you. Like, how is that not a problem? The fact that we have representation, and the fact that a movie like that even exists. My kids are like, they'll watch it every day. My 10-year-old knows all the words to all the songs. He didn't care for Spanish music or want to know about anything, and now he's like, oh my God, that's like how you grew up in your neighborhood? Like, I'm like, yeah, that's how it was in New York. And jokingly he says, like, people dance like that in the streets, and I was like, kind of, not quite like that, but block parties are block parties. But it's important that we don't just take a crap on everything. Can we just have one moment? Because that's a very positive film, man. And it's an accurate portrayal based on Lin-Manuel's experience. So you're telling him that his experience, you're relegating that to what? Oh, no, that's not fair. It's not accurate. That's his experience. How are you going to tell him about his experience? He shouldn't have had to apologize, and I don't agree with that. We're not coming together as a community enough, and this guy's basically carrying the entire Latin community in terms of in Hollywood and on Broadway. The guy revolutionized Broadway. I mean, how come people aren't where were the complaints with Hamilton? Because Hamilton was, all these people are white. Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr, all these people are white, and yet they were played by a multiracial cast. Where's the problem? Where's the outrage? I don't understand. Why do we put down these things? We need to be uplifting. And yes, there's some things that are problematic. Let's address them in a positive way and say, hey, look, we can move forward positively. But people are like, oh, you have to, like, what is going on, dude? Like, it's so problematic, man. So I also want to talk about, Bible said, be kind to your neighbor and give to the poor and needy. There are people who argue against social programs, and they say, don't give free money to anyone. Don't give handouts. American citizens pay into that. And it comes back to those who are in needs or who are eligible to receive it, which is also a problem because so many people don't even know how to sign up for so many of these things that are available. But some of these rich folks do. They know how when the PPP loans came out, a bunch of celebrities with a cast of, what was it? What is that show? The Bachelor. A bunch of people were applying for loans. They didn't need them. They were taking small businesses. They were taking money that belonged to them because they knew how to fill out the paperwork. Whereas these small businesses didn't know that, and they're not waiting at 12:01 on their phone to click it and so I can sign up. These guys are leeches. The wealthiest in the country don't contribute to that pot, but they sure took plenty of those PPP loan handouts. Government bailouts, when these CEOs bankrupted their own companies, screwing over their own employees, when they got even richer. They still got bonuses. So let's get that straight. Quote unquote free money. So free money, good for the rich. But free money, bad for the working class. Oh, no. And oh, by the way, that money, the US dollar, was it backed by gold? Nope. Not since Nixon was president. So what is it? Nothing. Nada. Fiat. You know what that means? Google it. It basically means faith. Its weight, its worth is only in faith in the U.S. economy, i.e. the government. As long as the Fed, Federal Federal Reserve tells you what it's worth and you believe it, then that's what it is. So I hear people talk about cryptocurrency is not real. The dollar bill's not real. Cryptocurrency at least has measurements. Electricity, it's on a network. There's a blockchain. Just because you don't understand it doesn't make it not real. And even if it wasn't real, what is real? Our dollar isn't real. There's nothing backing it. It's only worth what we think it's worth. The problem is our economy is seemingly manipulated, which is why the global economy didn't collapse after the pandemic hit, despite all evidence and analysis pointing to the opposite. By the way, many U.S. politicians on both sides happened to do massive stock sell-offs the day before the pandemic was reported to have reached the U.S. Interesting. How many of these politicians who say the virus is a hoax or that it's not that serious got vaccinated, and then when testing positive, they take experimental drugs for something that's not real apparently, or not dangerous, and happen to have sold their stocks just in case of a crash? But it seems like they took it pretty seriously and told you all otherwise. That play seems to have worked, and it's still working. They play us against each other so that we never unite together against them. Both parties have scumbags. Too many people think their side is infallible, and that's not democracy. It's not. Hold elected officials accountable. They're servants. They're not even supposed to be paid for that. These guys go up there 5 years and they get health care for the rest of their lives. 100% of their ridiculous paychecks. And you got to work 20 years at a job to get something. And if your boss decides to fire you just before because he didn't want to pay that out, guess what? Sucks to be you. 20 years of your life down the drain. All these guys got to do is get elected. It's not even a requirement for them to do the job. That's the only job that you can do that you don't have to have any skills for. You don't even have to graduate high school. Literally, the only requirement is that you're born here. And in some cases, be living in the place that you represent. That's it. All people have to do is just vote for you and you got a job. Tell me, when you think about these people that are telling you that other people don't want to work, what do? Their staff handles most of the stuff, and you can look at these people's records. You go on Ballotopedia or any one of these websites and look at exactly what they're voting on. Most of these people don't even do their jobs. Most of them don't even show up to Congress 50% of the time. And they just sit there and do nothing and tell you that this guy over here is taking your job, that migrants are coming and taking your jobs. When the economy crashed, I didn't see anybody running out to go and pick the farms. What happened? I thought the migrants were coming and taking all American jobs. Those guys are working the jobs that the regular people don't want to work. Let them have it. What's the matter to you? Again, too many people think that their side is infallible, and that is not democracy. And it's definitely not how free people behave. Let me say this over and over and over because it's true. Get it in your head. Freedom is not free. And I already know somebody in the back went, there's a hefty. No, I'm not doing it. I'm trying to keep it serious. That's funny. It is. It's a funny song. Google it. But it's true. It's also funny because it's true. But the question really is, how many people are actually willing to pay that price? I would argue not a lot. say about 50.3%. Wonder where I got that number from. I'm going to say something real quick about Afghanistan. All right. Let's all take into consideration that not a lot of people know what the hell the Taliban really is. I mean, I hear people arguing about this all the time. Do you even know what any of this is? Do you know that in the 1980s, we armed the Taliban to fight the Soviet Union? Because all those little countries that were there, you know, it was the stands, the Uzbekistan, Pakistan, all that was the Soviet Union. And they were closing in on Afghanistan, and these rebels were fighting back, and we gave them weapons, training, equipment, all kinds of stuff to fight the USSR, the Soviet Union. And they held them back, and the Soviet Union ended up collapsing, which gave way to the Russian Federation, and all those countries ended up becoming countries, individual countries again. So then fast forward to 2001, Osama bin Laden, head of Al-Qaeda. Remember, Al-Qaeda and Taliban are two different things. Al-Qaeda, terrorist organization, attacks the World Trade Center, September 11th. When that happens, we find out that Al-Qaeda is hanging out in Afghanistan, and Osama bin Laden is there. So we go in. A Republican president authorized this, by the way. We go into Afghanistan to get Osama bin Laden. We didn't get him until 2011. And even after we got him, we still stayed there for another 10 years. A Republican president, 2 terms. A Democrat president, 2 terms. Another Republican president. And then still in the first year of the next Democrat president. So who's to blame? Here's an issue. It's both sides. Here's the truth. It's both sides. There's fault on both sides. Nobody wanted to deal with that. Everybody knew that this was going to happen. We shouldn't have been there in the first place. Reality. The only people that benefited from this were corporations. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, these big government contracts. They were the ones who benefited from this. Their stock went up. They got to provide all these resources. It was a war economy. It was printing money practically. These guys blow something up. Hey, we'll rebuild it. Write another check. That's the reality of the situation, the military-industrial complex. It's a problem. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, defense systems. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have the best defense on the planet. We absolutely should. But that was needless. Also, it doesn't help with the fact that when we went in there, guns blazing, we gave a whole world a peek at all of our toys. And they saw exactly how we fight. And guess what? After going into Iraq and doing the same thing again, Iran changed its defense strategy. And they came up with a different strategy as opposed to the one before, which was very simple. Attack first, attack hard, and then wait. Duck and cover, go underground, and wait. Why? It's in their doctrine. Because you don't have to beat us. You just have to wait us out. They already knew. Eventually we'll leave. And we just showed the whole world exactly that. That all they have to do is just wait for us to get bored and leave. And screw over these people that were relying on us. And now the Taliban is going to go ahead and shape their image. And they're going to try to portray things differently for the public face. And they have a much better infrastructure now because we built it for them. We handed the keys to them. Also, the previous president announced when this was going to happen. So they had plenty of time to prepare. That's why this happened overnight. They knew when it was going to happen. This is the same guy that said, no, I don't tell people what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to tell people what I'm going to do. Why? Because he didn't put it during his time. He's going to kick the can down the road. So that in case the other guy wins, he got to deal with it. So then, if you don't do that, you look bad. If you do it, you still look bad. Do. No, but if you go through with it, you still look terrible. It's a no-win situation. And this president, regardless, I don't think it was handled well, but I don't think it could have been. And if it wasn't handled well, that really falls on the Department of Defense. The president himself isn't over here making plans and doing that. What were those guys doing? I would argue that they've been, you know, there have been missteps for 2 decades. The fact that how we even conducted ourselves in these 2 specific instances, and going before Vietnam, Libya, like all these instances. Look at Syria. All we do is go in somewhere, mess everything up, create the next generation of enemies, and then go home with our tails between our legs. Understand something. Soldiers did not lose Afghanistan. U.S. soldiers didn't. Every day that U.S. soldiers were there, even though there were some lost battles and some casualties, we maintained control of that country. The second we left, it fell apart. We didn't lose that. Afghanistan wasn't prepared. The Afghan government wasn't prepared enough to deal with themselves. The problem is they never would have been. It's unfortunate truth. 20 years of us being there, that would be suggesting that we failed. We didn't. The Taliban government was there before. Understand this. That was the government prior to. We overthrew a government. Would you like someone coming into the United States and saying, oh, this is Russia now? You would absolutely hate that. You would fight against it. So how is that different? Change your perspective. Look at it from your enemy's point of view. That was my job in the army, to understand how the enemy thought. You have to understand your enemy. You want to know about fascism? You should read works by Hitler. You should understand Hitler. You should read works by Karl Marx. You should understand these things. General Milley said it recently. You should understand the thought process of your enemy. And nobody's telling you to read this and become indoctrinated. You need to know your enemy. Just assuming, just blow everybody. What? Sun Tzu. Some of these basic principles that we've known about for hundreds of years in terms of combat and the art of war. And we ignored them in both Afghanistan and Iraq. It's pathetic. It's shameful. I attended a lot of funerals. Conducted several funerals for my own friends who died in Afghanistan. Those guys didn't fail. The U.S. government failed them. And the honest to God truth is, politicians playing, chess with people's lives. That's the failure. One president kicking a can down the road. See, what would have happened was you set the date for the next president, and in case he doesn't win and you're still the president, then you just kick the can down the road until the next guy. So that's not leadership. Now, sometimes leadership is taking responsibility for something you have no control over. That's what leadership is. It's taking responsibility. Was that Peter Parker saying? It applies. With great power comes great responsibility. Look at who acts responsibly in positions of power, and look at who doesn't. Don't listen to what they say. Look at what they do. People can argue about, Biden being incompetent or whatever. He might not win another term, but guess what? It's probably because he did what he felt he had to do and wasn't worried about how people would react to it. Because sometimes you just got to do the job. And I would argue that was one of my critiques of Obama's presidency. As a charismatic leader, I liked him a lot. A lot of policy issues, some people felt were unpopular. His last 4 years, he wasn't able to get anything done because the House and the Senate were controlled by Republicans, and they basically made him a lame duck for 4 years. Now, my argument for that would have been do whatever you need to do in your first 4 years, and that should speak for itself. The problem is doing the job right doesn't speak for itself. It's all about how you campaign. So he won his election because he was a good campaigner. But he really played it chill his first 4 years, which, can you blame the guy? First black president? I mean, you can't really blame the guy. It makes a lot of sense. I really can't blame the dude for just keeping it low key. But, if he had just done the job and didn't get reelected, then a lot of change would have been made then. Maybe things would have been the same. Maybe they would have been worse. Who knows? But this president's in this situation because the previous people made certain decisions. Reality. Bush started the war, didn't end it. Obama picked it up, and they ended it on paper, but it really didn't end. Like operations are done. Like we were still there, and even now, we said we're leaving Afghanistan, and like within 24 hours, it was like, oh, we got to put 5,000 troops back. Meanwhile, these guys are rolling around in our equipment, billions of dollars of money spent on that. We have no money, mind you. We have no money to forgive education benefits. We have no money to give to debt for what he's got, like student loan forgiveness. We have no money for that. We have no money for universal health care, for basic needs during a pandemic. No money for that, right? But we have billions of dollars to just give to the Taliban in equipment, in military equipment, that they're just going to turn around and kill Americans with sometime in the future, if not in the next couple of weeks. Think about that. The next time you're sitting here saying, look at the military budget compared to everything else. And understand that I'm not saying that we shouldn't have defense. What I'm saying is, where does that money go? Because it definitely doesn't go to soldiers. Think about it. Is it going to safety? Is it going to actual security? No, because there's no regulation on those things. Look what happened with these cyber attacks. There's been cyber attack after cyber attack, one after the other, over and over and over. And what's happening? We're gonna get worse. So why are we not innovating? Why are we not getting better? Why is China, Russia, why are these guys beating us at these things? Because we're too busy fighting each other. We're too busy fighting ourselves. They've figured it out, and not a lot of people have. Nobody beats us but us. So they just figured, as long as we keep fighting, we never can fight them. We're tearing ourselves apart from within. Why is nobody paying attention to this? It's really not difficult to see. It's a shame. And one more thing, I hate to go there, but I have people saying it, like all the time with it, thank you for your service and stuff like that. It comes out all the time, and I appreciate that. But be genuine about it. Don't just say those words. Think about what it means. If you're really thankful for somebody's sacrifice, honor it. There's numerous ways. I've talked about it before with public health, but in this specific instance, why are you talking about something you don't know about? A lot of people who never put that uniform on got a whole lot of opinions and suddenly become experts on military operations, foreign diplomacy, and all these issues. This is not a political matter. That's a totally different arena. Well, you don't know anything about this. Why are you having this conversation? People I know died over there. You don't get to just talk about this casually. What did you do? When I was in high school, I had plans to go. I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. I wanted to be a writer on Saturday. I didn't want to be even on the show. I wanted to write for Saturday Night Live. Think about that. That's what I wanted to do. I want to be part of the creative process. Maybe be on Weekend Update. That was my thing. My parents always said maybe I should have been like the host of the Tonight Show or something when I was a kid. That's what I wanted to do. I had a plan. I was going to go to Toronto. I was going to go to this place called Second City, and I was going to try stand-up, try doing improv. I was going to try to get noticed to get on SNL. I had plans. I would go back to New York. I had goals. That's what I wanted to do. I went to college and started, studying screenwriting. I read screenwriting books. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I was writing scripts when I was 15. Then 9/11 happened. The whole world was different. Nothing felt like it was going to be the same. Felt like it was the end of the world. Somewhat similar with coronavirus, but in a totally different way. And I wanted to join then. I went to a Marine recruiting station. They told me I wasn't old enough. Told me to come back in a few years. When I came back, They told me that I couldn't guarantee my job. The first time I went, I was like, infantry. That would not have been good, because it would not have set me up for opportunities in the future. If you're going to join the military, which I recommend, help me out a lot, then at least try to do something that you're going to want. If you want to be infantry, if that's what you want to be, do that and stay in, 20 years. Or if you want to be an advisor and you plan to stay working in the government, then do that. Like, it's a good profession. But if you don't plan on staying in, or if you don't know, get something that you can take on the outside. And so I was fortunate that, my skills were transferable. But when they told me I couldn't guarantee my job, it was needs the Marine Corps, I was like, and I went next door and I joined the Army. And so right after high school, I joined the Army, dropped out of college, and found myself overseas real fast. It was difficult. It was a sacrifice. I did it because I needed to do something for my family. I wanted to help out at home. I did it because I felt an obligation. My family comes from New York. I had an uncle who was working in one of the buildings. He was a fire marshal. I have another uncle who was a first responder. He was a cop who was out there. I have relatives who dealt with that situation firsthand. One of my cousins, she had a job interview on like the 90th floor or something, and she overslept, which is hilarious if you know her. That her basically oversleeping saved her life, because she didn't make it to that job interview and the building came down that day. So when you look at these events, I felt connected to them. I joined the Army. And again, it's not just one reason. It's a huge part of it. But I also knew that it was really hard when I was in college, going to work and going to school and living at home. I felt that I could help more by joining the Army and sending money home. And then education would be taken care of. It was a smart decision. It was a sacrifice, but it was also a smart decision for me personally. I also needed the discipline, and I needed to grow up. So I gave up my dream. And now, after 16 years, I got out. And now I'm trying to pursue that dream. I'm trying to do my own thing, on the side. I'm going back. I'm finishing up stories and figure out it's never too late to start. For years, I told myself that was never going to happen. And then I started doing things. Opportunities started coming. You can do anything you put your mind to. People say, some people will argue, no, you can't. Like, you'll never be Michael Jordan. Yeah? Tell it to Muggsy Bogues. That guy, by all intents and purposes, should not have been playing with those players at that time. He worked hard. Kobe Bryant also said this about Shaquille O'Neal. He said he was a natural talent and that he would have been the best in the game of all time if he had applied himself with the same ethic, say, as Muggsy Bogues. If he had worked that hard instead of just being naturally gifted, it would have been a significant difference. And it's interesting because I was supposed to do a video on this a long time ago about how that kind of connects to shonen anime and like Naruto and like Dragon Ball Z. One of the main themes of those shonen animes and those shows is that hard work beats natural talent. A really good example in Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke has bloodlines that are naturally make him a gifted warrior, or rather ninja. Whereas Naruto starts the series off as a complete goof, and he works hard until the point that they're equals, and then he even surpasses him. Then you have Dragon Ball Z, where you have, Vegeta was born with natural talent, and even though he had worked hard, for him, Goku surpassing him, that's nuts. He was the prince of all Saiyans. This guy was a low-class warrior, and yet he surpassed him. Frieza never had to train a day in his life. Naturally just, self-declared emperor of the universe. And here comes lowly little Saiyan, kicks his ass. Hard work beats natural talent. Now, if you have natural talent and you apply hard work, you're even better. So, realized a long time ago, got some natural talent. Wasn't putting in the hard work. So started putting in the hard work. I put that hard work into other things. Never put it into what I wanted to do personally. And now I have that opportunity. It's never too late. Never too late. But that being said, always push through it. And I don't look back on those things with negativity at all. I'm really proud of my service. And there were some hard times. There were times that it sucked. But that taught me things. It taught me how to deal with other things. It taught me how to not take certain things so seriously. And taught me that other things need to be taken more seriously. Changes your perspective on how you see the world. I've been to places I never thought I would have seen. Perspectives were gained. And it's really important that people understand not to take those things for granted from somebody else. The disrespect that people show, I think I've talked about Memorial Day and why, people don't really understand what that means. Thank you, people, for their service on Memorial Day. Memorial Day is to memorialize the ones who passed. Veterans Day is to thank a veteran. A lot of people think it's just a day to go get free food. I'm not gonna lie, some free wings just like anybody else, but feels kind of weird to take too much advantage of those benefits. I don't know. Balance. Anyway, hard work. So what kind of work are you putting in? What have you done nice for somebody today? What have you done nice for somebody else other than yourself? And even if you've done something nice for yourself, was it at someone else's expense? Did you really earn it? I mean, I can't answer those questions. If you're hearing this, you can answer them, and you don't got to tell me. Ask it to yourself. Wake up in the morning and tell yourself you can do it. You can do these things you put your mind to. Like I said, I made certain choices and I stick by them. But honor those people who made the same choice. Don't betray their sacrifices with trivial issues. And don't turn these issues into just meme wars. That you just post about something, it's okay. I'm not the type to get offended by things. I really don't care. For the most part. There are some things that's damn. But again, that's your prerogative. I don't like it, I keep moving. But you should still think about it. I'm not going to tell you need to think about it. But the fact that you don't think about it says something more about you than it does about me. And if I said something to you and it pissed you off, ask yourself, why did it piss you off? It's because I was right. Maybe. But I'm not going to do that. You do you, I'll do me. As long as we stay out of each other's way, who cares? And the truth is, we have to look out for each other as citizens of this country, as just people of this world, man. Just don't take other people's sacrifices for granted. I cannot harp on that enough, man. Again, if you're interested in this, if this is informative for you, I appreciate any feedback. I try to get to things. I'm doing a million different things. I volunteer at I'm the vice president at a local Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I volunteer some time at Wolfpack. It's a nonpartisan organization that's helping to reform campaign. It's for campaign finance reform. Basically, bribery is legal, and so getting money out of politics will help change a lot of things. And that's not a red or blue issue. Like I said, nonpartisan. Most progressives will agree you got to get money out of politics. But say for a Republican who feels that doesn't make sense for them, ask yourself how much money was poured into the elections in Georgia that tipped the state blue. It was out-of-state money, came from California. Corporate donors, man. Some of these people pretend like they don't want money in politics, but they're taking it on the side. So, start weeding people out. If you want to perform a service, serve. You shouldn't be there to get benefits. People think there's the kings and queens of this country, man. And they play with soldiers like pawns. Anyway, again, I thank you for listening, and I appreciate any feedback. Again, hit that like and subscribe button, and tell me if you want to hear more stuff. Like, anybody have any recommendations on subjects? I'm going to be talking about some more stuff. Like, I'm trying to keep it real, man. Like, I want my kids to learn stuff. I need people to learn. I want to share ideas. So if you have ideas, share them with me, and I'll share them with you. We got to uplift each other, man. We're not going to make it through. Times are going to get harder. I believe that. Anyway, stay blessed.